Today we're going to look at criminal law really for the first time in any depth, and you might be wondering why it is that criminal law holds such a degree of fascination for me, as many of you know. Well, it's an area of law that is, to me, transcends law itself. It really tells us so much about who we are as a society. If you harken back to this quote from this great 19th century writer, Fyodor Dostoevsky, a society should be judged not by how it treats its outstanding citizens, but by how it treats its criminals. And I think probably the best way to start figuring out criminal law is to really start from the end. And that's to focus on sentencing, which, if you don't already know, sentencing is really the process by which, once you're found guilty of a crime, all the way at the end, how you're punished. And in Canada, we have very specific purposes that are set out as being driving how judges should be deciding to sentence criminals once they have been found guilty. Criminal law actually tends to be studied more in the opposite direction. You start off with a mandatory criminal law course in law school that looks at the essential concepts, things that we'll look at later, like actus reus and mens rea. Then you have a chance to branch out into criminal evidence, criminal procedure, trial advocacy, all these other things. And at the very end, there's an optional course on sentencing. We're actually going to start with that. So it's essentially a discussion of legal punishments that are attached to criminal offenses. And you can't really understand these punishments without thinking, what is it that's supposed to be shaping the different choices that a judge can make in how to dole out a sentence to a specific offender? Really, a prosecution involves the prosecutor, that's the lawyer for the government side, for the police side, going in front of a judge, asking that a punishment be imposed. So let's focus on the end goal of all this. What is the purpose of sentencing? Well, you might guess a few what some of them might be, but ultimately you could say to yourself, retribution might be part of it. We'll see what that means, but essentially it means hitting you back so that you get something like the consequences that you have set out. You could see it as, well, sentencing should be about rehabilitation instead, where we're trying to get the person to stop being a criminal and become a productive member of society. Could be specific deterrence. Now, you probably don't know what that means, but specific means specific to you, the person who's been found guilty. Deterrence means persuading you to not do it again. So specific deterrence just means convincing you, the criminal, to not do the same thing a second time or a third time or whatever. General deterrence means convincing society at large to not do what you have done. Denunciation means using this opportunity to say out loud as a society what this person did is a bad thing. Protection of the public means putting in place measures through the sentence that will actually protect the public from you doing this thing to them. Reparation, which means trying to undo some of the damage that has been done. Now, all those different purposes, and we'll go through them in detail today, but you see how many of them are probably going to overlap. And this is actually what can get complicated about sentencing, right? You might say to yourself, the purpose, like rehabilitation here, where you help the criminal to overcome the things in their life that have made them done bad things, and so you try and make them live a better life. This rehabilitation angle could end up hopefully leading to somebody actually living a productive life, right? Like they've changed their ways through the wisdom that was brought to them by having to face consequences for their actions. That's the purpose. That's rehabilitation. At the same time, the criminal sentencing purpose of general deterrence says, well, we have to use this person, we have to really punish them in a way that will discourage other people from doing the same thing. And this is going to generally push towards giving them a sentence that involves some kind of long sentence of imprisonment, right? Now, if you look at these two purposes here, they're probably going to work against each other. And this can happen. That laundry list of sentencing purposes that you saw before, some of them will actually work against each other. And so in each case, it can be a difficult balancing act for a judge to figure out what purposes in sentencing have to be most important for the specific criminal and the specific crime that is in front of the judge in that case.